One final call. Does anyone else want to speak? If so, this is your chance. Okay. Are we all ready, Mrs. Varner? Are we on live stream?
You're on.
Okay, Mr. Martin. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November 18th, 2024 meeting of the Preston County Board of Education. I am the president, and I will call this special meeting to order, and will begin by asking for a moment of silence. Okay, and now the Vice President will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Kisner. Okay, this meeting is called to order, and at least a quorum of the board and the superintendent is present. We will start. We have to approve our minutes from our hearings at each of the schools. So the first item of business is to approve the minutes from October 28th, 2024 from the school closure hearing for Rollsburg School held at Aurora School. This is an action item, okay? And before we go any further, for all of the minutes, I would like the record to reflect that I've gotten written notification from all board members that they have read the minutes in advance.
In addition, Mr. Tatham, there have been a full transcript of each of the scheduled hearings below the minutes on each section.
Thank you. Can I please get a motion to approve the minutes for October 28th for the school closure hearing for Rollsburg School held at Aurora? Made by Mr. Zigray. Can I get a second?
A second.
Okay. Seconded by Mrs. Miller. Is there any discussion or corrections or changes to the minutes from members of the board? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention.
Okay. Next on the agenda is approving the minutes for October 29th from the school closure hearing for Fellowsville Elementary held at South Preston. This is an action item.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Hovatter. Okay, is there any discussion, corrections, or changes to the minutes from members of the board? Not seeing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is approving the minutes for October 29th, 2024 from the school closure hearing for Fellowsville Elementary held at Fellowsville Elementary. This is an action item. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Zigray. Okay, any discussion, questions, or changes? Not seeing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
The next item is approving the minutes for October 30th, 2024 from the school closure hearing for Rollsburg School held at Rollsburg. This is an action item. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
It moved by Mr. Zigray. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Hovatter. Are there any questions, changes, or corrections? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is delegations and citizen participation. Okay. Just going to go over our policy regarding delegations and citizen participation. This is a discussion and information item where the community discusses and the board receives and hears information. The opportunity to question school officials was on October 28th, 29th, and 30th. As per policy R1-9-11, upon recognition by the president, a speaker making a presentation should clearly state his or her name and the subject of his or her remarks. If at the conclusion of the speaker's remarks, any board member desires further information, the member may address the speaker. If speakers pose questions, those questions can be answered by the superintendent or board members during the deliberation section or at the presiding officer's choice if he wants to delegate someone to answer. Members of the public, in order of sign-in, shall be afforded an opportunity to submit statements and testimony prior to the vote on the proposed school closures and mergers. In order to give every member of the public a fair opportunity to provide statements and testimony, 5 minutes have been allotted for each member of the public. I received several emails today after 8 o'clock this morning that were not able to get into the official record, so I'm going to read those emails into the official record now. I have not had a chance to read them, and I'm assuming other board members, if they received them, have not. Okay, this is an email from Jasmine Winters, received at 4:40 p.m. today. My husband, Clinton Winters, is a licensed and insured general contractor that is willing to donate labor on Saturday to help repair the roof. Any questions, please call him at, and a phone number was given. This email is from Tim Osborne. It was received at 11:19 today. To members of the Preston County Board of Education, I, Tim Osborne, owner of Pro V Tree LLC and Pro V Services LLC, and my sons pledge to donate funding, equipment, and manpower toward the roof repairs to help the students of Fellowsville Elementary School. With working with local contractors and businesses, it seems that there will be a more cost-efficient option. We want to help do what we believe is best for the local children and our local community, as we have 2 businesses in this area and many friends and fellow business owners on this small town. Thank you, Tim Osborne, owner, Pro V Services LLC. This is an email from John Crippen, received at 2 p.m. today. I, John B. Crippen of C&S Construction, pledge my support and labor to help with the replacement of the metal roof on Fellowsville Elementary School. Others have also pledged their support and labor. This should cut the cost to replace the roof. I have had 2 kids that have went through Preston County schools. I may not have any kids, but have family in our schools. I have and always will support Fellowsville School. So I ask that you vote to keep Fellowsville School open and give the community a chance to help cut your overall cost for this and future projects. John B. Crippen. Address and cell phone number given. This email was received at 2:01 p.m. today. Sirs and Madam, I am against the proposed closing of Fellowsville Elementary School. There are too many unanswered questions concerning this issue. You are removing students from a higher performing school and sending them to a much lower performing school. Allow these students to continue to have academic success by voting no. Information obtained at schooldigger.com. This school is vital to our community. Students love attending this school. It deserves the same grace that has been given to Rollsburg School and community for the past several years. There are upcoming students waiting for their chance to attend. It is also used for health fairs by the Fellowsville Athletics Incorporated, by After School Christian Group, and the Sandy Pals 4-H Club. Board members and our board office employees have repeatedly stated that the levy proposals do not pass in this area. However, citizens in this area of the county pay school levy property taxes that benefit other schools. They continue to pay these levy taxes each time a levy is passed, even when they believe the promised spending for Fellowsville Elementary School has not occurred. Have all repairs on record actually been made? If needed repairs are beyond the current ability of maintenance employees, has the maintenance supervisor visited the school to assess what is needed and made recommendations to bid that repair out? Is there documentation of these visits? Currently, there are reoccurring issues with the restrooms. Why has this not been put forth as an out-of-board bid job? It has been stated that an entire new roof is needed. Where is the documentation for this? I have heard that the roof contractor used the wrong size screws on this roof intended to return to correct this. However, the project manager signed off on the project, so the necessary correction never occurred. To conclude, there are many questions that do not have data-supported answers. Why are we sending students to a school with lower test ranking? Where is the Board of Education's documentation that levy funds were properly used on the Fellowsville School building? Please vote no on the closing of Fellowsville Elementary School. Fellowsville Elementary School students perform academically higher than South Preston School. The community supports and uses the school building, and Fellowsville citizens pay their school levy taxes. Show this community you are willing to support their local school by voting no to this school closure. Thank you, K.L. Bolliard, Fellowsville community member, telephone number provided. To whom this email was received at 2:37 today. To whom it may concern. Vote no on the proposed closing of Fellowsville Elementary School. Fellowsville Elementary School students have outscored South Preston School elementary students consistently for the past years. FS Fellowsville School has ranked higher on test scores than other schools within our county. Information can be found at schooldigger.com. Allow these students to continue their education in their home community. Allow them to shine for Preston County schools. Vote no to closing Fellowsville Elementary School. Thank you, K.L. Bolliard, Fellowsville community member, Preston County taxpayer, telephone number given. This email was received at 2:49 today. The Fellowsville Elementary School PTO Incorporated would like to extend a pledge of $5,000 to be used by the community organizers of the roofing project at Fellowsville Elementary School, if it remains open. We will also work towards collecting additional funds, materials, and helping hands to make it happen. This school is a vital part of our community, and we will work hard to make up for the maintenance shortcomings. We are a strong and unified community. We can do this together. Sincerely, Fellowsville Elementary School PTO Incorporated. This email was received at 3:02 p.m. Members of the Preston County BOE. Attached is Sandy Hill's pledge to maintenance and repairs at Fellowsville Elementary. Thank you, Katie Jennings. Address and telephone number provided. Members of the Preston County Board of Education, we, Trampus, Eric, and Trapper Jennings, owners of Sand Hill LLC, pledge our support to Fellowsville Elementary School. We believe in this small school and are committed to helping where needed, whether through funding, equipment use, or laborers for the maintenance and repair of projects at this school. We stand with other local businesses in support of Fellowsville Elementary School. Sincerely, Sand Hill LLC, letter dated November 18, 2024. This email was at 4:31 today. Just Metal Roofing, contractor license provided, address and telephone number provided. To whom it may concern, I, Larry Yonker, the owner of Just Metal Roofing, is willing to donate my time, men, and tools to help replace the Fellowsville School roof if it would be voted to stay open. Thank you, Larry Yonker. This email was received at 3:39 today. To whom it may concern, I have attached a letter regarding the closure of Fellowsville Elementary School. I hope you have a chance to read it, and I appreciate your time. Thank you, Charity Sigley. To whom it may concern, my name is Charity Sigley. I am an alumnus of Fellowsville Elementary School. In the summer of 2019, I applied and was hired as the preschool lead teacher at Fellowsville Elementary. When I began working full-time at Fellowsville, I was absolutely blown away by the welcome I received. The phone call confirming I was hired was not only made by the principal, but the rest of the staff, who excitedly yelled, "Congratulations," and welcomed me. I was overwhelmed by the love and support of just that phone call, and I didn't think it could be any better. Upon starting the school year, the entire staff and community rallied to ensure I had an amazing year. The parent volunteers and so many others were willing to help whenever and wherever I needed them. I was most appreciative of the support from families and the school staff when my beloved grandmother passed away only a few weeks after the school year began. I also received support and love from the families and staff when my precious 4-month-old niece passed away in September 2021. The love in this community is second to none, and my family and I are forever grateful and so blessed to have them in our lives. As we all know, when COVID hit our state, the schools closed, but our teachers did not hesitate to prepare all materials to help our students keep on track. From packets to virtual sessions, our teachers rallied to provide the best education possible for the children entrusted to us by their parents. While it was a very difficult, ever-changing situation for at least 2 years, our staff never ceased to amaze me with their dedication to the education of our students. Over the years, I have watched students go from struggle to strength through their efforts with our staff and the heart each staff member has for supporting students in achieving their best results. Researchers have discovered smaller schools provide a better environment for learning because it allows the staff to teach from a whole child approach. This means the students' academic, social, and emotional experiences and aspects are examined and used to design inclusive instructional activities, which help to ensure students are learning to their full potential. At Fellowsville, our small classes allow us to teach this way, and it is so much more than just the academics. We teach the students to have compassion, show their strength in adversity, and believe in themselves even when something seems out of reach. I can tell you so many stories of students who accomplished things they never thought were possible. I myself would never have thought I would make it through college, let alone become a teacher at my alma mater. I remember passing by my elementary teachers in grocery stores, where we would stop to talk for a while. Each time I was asked how my schooling was going and encouraged to keep pushing towards my goal. I changed my college major because of the love I had for learning and the support from my former teachers. As I write this letter, I am reminded of the strength of this beautiful community school. Each student is blessed with bonus aunts, uncles, grandparents, and so many other supporters wanting nothing more than to see them succeed. Our community is the strongest I have ever seen, and it is all due to this exemplary school. I am so proud to say I was a student in this loving school, and I would love to see my future children attend Fellowsville. My love for learning and desire to become a teacher started in this small school. The school everyone seems to forget about or not consider good enough is the only school that has ever truly felt like home. It pains me to see the level of blatant disregard and neglect of such a blessing to the community. Our main issues at the school could have been easily resolved over the past few years, but it seems to me no one really wanted to take the time to do so. I have witnessed firsthand how little some people care about the upkeep of the building. How would it feel for you to have someone coming to your home to fix something, and all the person wants to discuss is how you should close or abandon your home? I personally would not want the person to complete any task for me, and I would look for someone who genuinely cared about what I needed, regardless of whether it was an easy task or not. I have spent many nights wondering how long it will be before someone decides to make a change for the betterment of the school. Closing schools does not help our students, and it most certainly does not help our communities. I am very aware that this decision will not be made lightly by anyone on the Board of Education, and I hope each of you fully considers not only the impact of closure versus non-closure on the county, but also the impact on our students. Our students look to us for so much more than just learning to read and write. They look to us for support, love, guidance, and a safe place to grow and try things they may never imagine possible for them otherwise. I encourage you to please vote to keep our school open. Thank you, Charity Sigley. Okay, those were all of the emails I received today that were not included in the record beforehand. If ones came in, I'm sorry. I mean, I printed it at 4:40, so, okay. So, all right, next, we have 16 folks that have signed up to speak. We have a microphone up here. I will just say now, you're gonna have to probably remove the microphone from the holder and hold it up to you so it's close enough for everyone to hear. You have 5 minutes to speak. Mrs. Varner will keep time, and she will give a 1 minute warning when you have 1 minute remaining, and she'll do so loud enough that I can hear, okay? First on the list is Craig Schmidl.
Good evening. My name is Craig Schmidl, and I am the principal of Fellowsville Elementary School in Rollsburg School. I would like to reiterate what I previously stated at the public hearings. I have worked with Preston County Schools for almost 26 years. In those 26 years, I've had the honor to work in 7 schools in Preston County. I can honestly say that the smaller schools, such as Fellowsville Elementary and Rollsburg School, have been my favorite. Smaller schools have many positive attributes, including but not limited to providing more one-on-one student-adult interaction, providing a close-knit family environment and atmosphere, and serving as a hub for the community. Please allow Fellowsville Elementary School and Rollsburg School to continue their history of success. Please vote to allow Fellowsville Elementary School and Rollsburg School to continue to exist into the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidl. Next on the list is Georgia Phillips.
Hi, my name is Georgia Phillips, and I'm in the 5th grade at Rollsburg. And I'm on honor roll, and I'm here to ask you to vote to keep my school. Don't put money over us kids. If you want to keep my school, you find a way. People always find money for what they really want. This is how much money you want, and this is how low you think about the kids' feelings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Next is Carol Castle.
I emailed everybody a copy of, if you didn't get it, I have paper copies.
Ms. Castle was proposed.
Okay.
Ms. Castle, let's pull the mic. You can probably leave it on stand or you just hang it. There you go.
I was going to read it again, but I'm not, after everything that's been said. I'm here to speak for Rollsburg and Fellows,ville. I suggested that you all take a look at that Cullen School and what they've done with the enrichment and everything. Those small schools, they were a Title I, they're a Title I school, and they have a 5-star rating. We could do that. We have 3 schools in this county we could do that with: Fellows,ville, Rollsburg, and Aurora. And if you look at those schools and look at all the programs with technology, we can add enrichment such as sign language and things like that. And if you let the community be welcome and involved, you'll get a lot done. That's what happened in that area. So I'd suggest everybody take a look at it. You ask why a levy doesn't pass, or at least people argue with me about why it didn't pass. Ask the people. Ask the people that didn't vote for it. They'll tell you why. They're not buying the product you're selling. They're voting with their tax dollars. They're voting with their feet. They're taking their kids to other schools, Christian schools, hot schools, micro schools. Ask why they're doing that. I was a parent that took my child and left the county for 2 solid years and drove almost an hour and a half one way, twice a day, until I decided I'd just volunteer there. But it was to get the best for my child. Let's give these children the best. Let's give them what we can and should give them. You're selling a product. You're selling education. We can pass a levy if the people feel like they're getting what they are buying, but they don't feel like they're getting that. We watch repairs not get done. We watch things happen like maintenance where we need a ladder and it takes 3 trips to Kingwood for a ladder. That makes no sense whatsoever. We see waste. Cut the waste. Bring in an independent group to look at the books. And I guarantee you, if you get several business people across the county, they can find a lot of waste that can be cut. I also guarantee you that if you talk to the people and make them feel like you care and are willing to fix the schools, they will vote for the children. When they reject the levy, they're not rejecting the children. They're rejecting a product that they see as inferior and a price that's too high for what you're asking them to pay. If you will look at that and if you will talk to people, don't just argue with them. I've had people get in my face and argue with me about why these 2 small schools should be closed. But if you go ahead and do this, I'll guarantee you in less than 5 years, you'll be closing 2 more schools, Aurora and Terrell, because that is the track record and the history that we've had, and there's never enough money. And I'll guarantee you that kids will keep leaving this county, they'll keep leaving the public school, and I'll guarantee you people won't pass levies. And I see public school going down the tubes if you don't start doing something different. We need change. We need change that's positive. We need change that involves the communities helping and making them feel that they have a vested interest and feel that they can trust what's being done with their tax dollars. We need to invest in our kids and what's good for them, because if not, public school will be gone. And the saddest part of that, because I feel there's a need for public school, I feel that there's a need for children and parents to have a choice too. But I also know that if kids keep leaving, public school will be down the tubes, and the underserved and the poorest in our communities will be the people that suffer. So I'm asking you, please don't close these 2 schools. Let's put together a committee and work on getting them funded the way they should with grants and help. And I have to applaud Fellows,ville because they've really stepped up with offering to help. And that's amazing. And you can have the same thing at all the schools. And when you want the extra
1
products,
minute.
there's band boosters, there's athletic boosters to pay for some of the stuff that's come out of the levy. And people see that and they say, why should I pay for, a dozen kids to play basketball or football? They want to see their dollars go into classical education. They want to see the kids be able to compete in math, science, English. And the enrichment is all extra and it can happen easily. Let's just work together. Please don't close these 2 schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castle. Next on the list is Ashley Wilt.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm here to talk about, I guess, Wellsville Elementary. Same thing that you said for Goldsburg. I wasn't born in Wellsville. I was born in Aurora, and I know I emailed all of you guys a little bit of back history. But we have a lot of issues in Preston County and in West Virginia. We have over 6,000 kids in foster care right now. I have adopted 3 kids through foster care, and I'm not going to get into that because 2 of them are here to speak to you. And it's hard to tell what they're going to say, so. But when I initially got the placement of my 2 older children, we were living in Aurora, West Virginia. But I also had a house in Bellows. So I knew that I was going to end up moving to Bellows. So I started my kids in Bellows and drove down to Bellows. Because some of you are well aware of the foster care system, but when they're placed, they lose everything. Everything. You couldn't imagine a lot of this. But the teachers at Bellows, they welcomed them with open arms, and they weren't the easiest kids. They still aren't. But they would get on the phone, they would call me, we would work it out. But, and I'm not saying Bellows the only one that has great teachers, because I've seen other great teachers in other schools. I really have, because I've had other placements, I've had other placements that are unified. I've seen the teachers in those schools, when they see those kids, making strides, seeing them cry, they care too. But Bellows special, okay? My kids probably would have made it in a bigger school. I probably would have went with the micro school or homeschooling or something along those lines, to be completely honest with you. And if it does close, that's probably where we're going. And I don't say that as a threat. I say that because I need you to understand that some of these kids have more than just educational space in their lives. I mean, all kids do, but some kids really need Miss Tammy's, and teachers like that in the Fellows School, the community, the PTO, they run up to the PTO members and hug them and all that other stuff. But my mom taught in Maryland for years. She retired. She subs there. So she subs at Crowlin Elementary now. She just recently started subbing at Crowlin. She usually did job place. But anyways, a friend of mine, Shelby Miller, shared a post about Crowlin schools. And the principal, Dana, thank you. I always just call her Dana, sorry. But we had the opportunity to go and tour Crowlin schools. Me, Roberta, Ms. Sanders, and Mrs. Plum. She couldn't make it today. But we learned a lot. I mean, a lot. And it was amazing what they are doing. It's amazing to see the test scores and the enrichment programs they have. They also have the kind of like Kinsey stuff going on. I get to that. For the enrichments programs, they're hands-on. They take the kids outside. They get to see stuff and, experience it.
1 minute.
I think going towards something like Crowlin has is going to compete with those micro schools. Is going to compete with some of this other stuff to where you guys can get more kids back into the Preston County school system. When Dana actually talked to us and she was low on numbers like we were, she actually now has 154 students, which is over what she's supposed to have. But the reason is because people actually moved to Crowlin just so their kids could go to Crowlin. She talked to us, we asked her to know if she would come over to Fellows,ville and help us. And she said, absolutely. She said she would come and tour, see what we could do over there, which you guys would be more than welcome, and she would welcome you guys with open arms as well. To be able to see what we could do. She already told me she'd give me a list of grants, different stuff like that that we would be able to apply for.
Time.
Thank you, Ms. Wilt. Next on the list is Sophia Wilt. How about we have Caden come up, and then if Sophia wants to speak after Caden, then she can.
Hi, my name is Kaden, and I love my school because you get to learn about stuff that's very nice. You learn multiplication, you learn time. You learn math. You learn division. And you learn how to be safe, how to follow the rules at school. And you always listen there. And you always have to be good.
Thank you, Caden. Sophia, did you want to go? Okay, thank you. Next on the list is Buck Jennings.
Can you hear me there? Okay, what I want to discuss with you tonight is West Virginia has a lot of problems. We're first in a lot of things, and most of that's negative, but we have the greatest resources of most any state. And one of our resources is our kids. And you know, we have all these drug problems, we have not wanting to go to work. You know what the answer to that is? It's not rehab, it's education. And we've got to start our education from the very beginning. We have a school now that is showing signs of really doing good. So why do we want to destroy that and blend it with another instead of going to the other school and making that school really good? You've already got this fixed over here. Now let's go over here. And I happen to think that Brad does nothing but loves every kid in this county. I have great faith in Brad. But I can tell you right now, he's looking at the easy solution because of the finances. But if you guys would say, Brad, we're not doing that, figure it out, Brad will figure it out. And he will come up with a solution, but we can keep these schools. And we can, whenever these schools die, that community dies. The reason Fellows,ville does so good is because you see all these people here, they're backing their kids. That's one of the things that we're missing. This consolidation started in the 50s. I remember when I was in high school in Fellows,ville, we was going to be consolidated and all this, but the community does not move with it. The community dies when they consolidate. I will say that in Charleston, we are working on the school aid formula. We're going to try to revise that so where it's more fair to the counties. I can't promise you anything. And the other thing is, we have been doing the same thing over and over and over. Since the 50s, we've been consolidating. but we've been going downhill. We've not gained. Do you know we are rated the worst in the nation for our schools? And it's not because our teachers are worse. Our teachers are great. It's not because our kids are worse. Our kids are great. It's just that the leadership is not doing its job the way it should. To lead, to figure out a way so kids want to go to school. They don't want to stay home. I know we're running into problems with kids wanting to go to micro schools and that, but alternatives is a good thing. It's called competition. Let's make our public schools the best so these kids want to come back to our public schools where they can really thrive and really grow. And to do that, you as board members have got to start being bold. Not just following, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is the only option we have. No, you've got to say to yourself, no, we're going to make Preston County the best county for education in all of West Virginia. And we can do it. We have the people here that will do it. But it's up to you guys to make that decision, to push it. That's what you were ran for. That's what you were elected to do. That's what you got to do. Sometimes it's not easy. This is the worst job. Nobody ever wants to be on the Board of Education. There is never a right answer. But I'm telling you, you can do it. You can, and we want to keep these small schools. Once they're closed, it's done. They're gone. They'll not come back. And give it some more time. People are realizing these smaller schools is the place they want to take their kids to.
1 minute.
And that's what we want to do. We want to make it so they want to move around Fowlersville. They want to move. Roseburg is such a beautiful little town. I mean, you know, I just smile every time I go through there because of how they take care of their town. It will grow one day. But if you close that school, young people aren't going to bring their kids there to go to school. You've got to keep those small schools open so that you keep this parent and grandparent and cousins involved in their schooling. That's what makes kids excel. And I hope that you'll make the right decision here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Okay, next is Roberta Gribble.
Hello, it's me again. Third time's a charm, right? So I just want to talk to you guys about the Krellin trip that we took. I know a few people have hit on it, but I think that would be a great opportunity for Preston County to get behind so that we can compete with the small schools. I feel like the enrichment programs that they have brought more families in, which is what we need in our area, in our state, our whole county and our state. So I really encourage you guys to think about that when you vote. Our school would be perfect for that. It felt like when I went to that area, it was home. It felt like Fellows,ville. Dana's wonderful. She's a beautiful person. So, and she'll help us do everything that we want to accomplish. You know, I think that if you close our school, then, like they said, we're not going to bring it back. We can't, and we need to go forward. We do need to go forward, but we need to go smaller. We need to think smaller. We need to dial it back. We need to put our kids first. Pretty much what everybody else in this room is going to tell you. So I'll let that be. So please vote no.
Thank you, Ms. Gribble. Okay, next on the list is Rick Rhodes.
As I signed up, I had to sign up as a community member. I've got a long history with Fellows,ville. I've got some surrogate grandkids that go kids are doing in Roseburg too. I've got a friend that substitute teaches the two schools he really likes to sub at, Roseburg and Fellows. Kids give him respect and they want to learn. So I'm going to ask myself, why would you want to break up a community like that? And if you close Fellows School, you're going to be breaking up a community.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Next on the list is Tabitha Funk Osborne.
Can you hear me? I'm Tabitha Osborne, and we find ourselves here once again, advocating for a vital cause, voting no to the closure of our beloved Bethel Elementary School. This isn't just about education. It's about our community, our children, and our shared future. Our community is on a path of growth with an increase in population expected in the coming years, upwards of like 63 kids. We have a unique opportunity to nurture this growth and ensure that our school remains the heart of our community. For years, we have supported levies, demonstrating our commitment to education, yet we've seen minimal funding for necessary repairs and upkeep of our school, which caused us to look at other ways. I went through this levy paper to say I was disappointed. That's about all I can say. We got nothing, hardly at all. As a lifelong resident of Prince County, a parent, and a former educator, I am passionate about fighting for our school to have another chance. It deserves better than to be shut down, especially when it served as a cornerstone for so many children and families. Nationwide, the closure of schools is often portrayed as a cost-saving measure that can boost performance and create opportunities for disadvantaged students. However, we must consider the hidden consequences: increased absenteeism, diminished involvement in after-school activities, and a decrease in parental engagement, often accompanying these closures. For our community, this could mean not just losing a school, but experiencing business downturns and population decline. Not everyone lives in the main Fellows community. Many of our children live in areas that will require them to spend an hour on a bus to reach Southwest. This can lead to experiencing stress, lower academic performance, and lack of participation in extracurricular activities. Our young children deserve better. They should not be burdened with such strain. Let's stand together, vote no to closing our school. We have the power to protect the education future for our children. The time is back now. Let's ensure our beloved Fellows Elementary School remains the pillar of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Funk Osborne. Next is Donald Bub Funk.
Hello, my name is Donald Funk. We're here again, as usual. But at the last meeting, I was informed that to replace the Fellows Road roof would cost $900,000, which seems an absurd amount. I'm a local contractor and I know how much stuff costs. $900,000 is ridiculous. I talked to a couple members of the panel that are here tonight about the cost. Why it was so high. They said we had to follow guidelines set by the SBA. So I called a high-ranking official of the SBA, and he said there's no such guidelines that you had to follow as far as removing the asphalt, shingles, and the flat roof. So then I called back and asked another question, and they said, oh, well, maybe it was the fire marshal. I had Mr. Jennings call the state fire marshal. He said there's no such guidelines. So I talked to several of the contractors in the area about getting together to donate time to install the roof. The SBA guy said there was no problem with that. That he has seen it several times in the past where the community came together to fix a problem. So I took a look at the roof. In my professional opinion, most of the problem is from neglect. Screws missing, screws not all the way in, pipe missing out of a pipe loop, moss growing out of it, brake metal missing, no counter flashing up against the sidewall. Somebody sent me a picture of screws that backed out in a certain location, and 5 years later, the same screws are still exposed. So I came up with material list. I called, it's actually a guy I used to run my own roofing. And I gave him the dimensions and everything. He said I could get all the material for $75,000, including lumber for purlins and everything like that. So since there's no need to tear off the asphalt or the main part of the roof, we could just purlin it off, wouldn't mess with the asbestos, and we just put the roof right over top of it, no problem. So we as a community can cover the cost and installation of a new roof. We as a community can take care of the roof. We have numerous people pledge time, money, and material if you don't close the school. We're also looking into grants to help ease the cost. Do what's right, not what is easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Funk. Next on the list is Doug Coombs.
Good evening, everybody. My question still has never been answered, so I'm going to ask it again. I presented you guys with what the state regulation is on the busing time. Has a schedule been worked out for both schools where the children will be on the bus less than 1 hour? And if it hasn't been, you have no choice but to vote this down. You can't, you're breaking the law. I don't know if it's done purposely, but like I said, the paperwork is getting ready to be turned in, asking for waivers. Cannot be turned in until there's a bus schedule for all students that are going to be affected by these two school closures. I don't know if this has been happening. I know, I'm not hearing nothing, I'm school bus driver. So as far as I know, they haven't got these new schedules out yet. They haven't had their meetings. So I talked to the drivers that are going to be affected by this. They haven't had their meetings. So like I said, I want to look y'all in the face and ask you, you're going to do what's right. You're going to do what's legal. Now, this affects both schools, more to Rollsburg than the other. I'm not going to talk about the safety of the mountain, because we know what that is. And also, I'm a guy of facts, you know that. Facts are, they have dropped the ball. Before this is even done, they should have already had these schedules for busing worked out. They haven't done so. Henceforth, that puts Mr. Brad and Mr. Plum in a bad position. Because legally, they can be held criminally responsible if they don't have this worked out by the time the school starts. It will be classified as gross negligence and knowingly and willingly endangering the welfare of a minor. We don't need that in this county. And we don't need that against either one of them. I know they're doing their best. But right now, it's on their shoulders. It's making them look bad. So all I can tell you is from a legal standpoint, from a taxpayer standpoint, you have no choice right now to leave these schools open. Table it. Figure out what you want to do, especially with these busing schedules. Because like I said, the kids cannot be on the bus an hour. They don't. You've heard other people say, just want to be an hour. Or better. They don't need to go on the bus anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coombs. Next on the list is Arthur Boylan.
Love them kids. And I've heard y'all say that Fellows has some of the highest scores of these schools. Why run that? I mean, the Denver school or Southwestern or whatever you call them, they don't grade up with Fellows. Also, Roseburg, they have awesome teachers there. It's the small school thing where these kids are getting good education. And I can't believe y'all want to run that. You want to send Roseburg to Aurora? I don't know if y'all get out of Kingwood very much, but if you've ever been up Cheat Mountain in the wintertime, that's not a very fine place to be. schools hold these communities together. And that's, I mean, you want to pile them all up in one school? That's not the answer, man. If you look at, like the test scores and whatnot, I don't know what they are here in this high school, but I guarantee you, they're not as good as what they were when we had community schools throughout the county. And, you know, I'm a product of consolidation. I was one of the first years went to West Preston. Well, Mason County thought they had it made. Well, what'd they get? They're coming up here now. And it's starting to look like a third world town. So I just beg y'all to keep these schools in the community. I mean, I'm an old bastard, but if I have to work until the day I die, I'll donate my time to help work on that school over. I'll donate money to help fix that school. I mean, y'all kind of hinted if they didn't pass the levy, well, it's going to be shut down. You can't hold us hostage, because we'll find a way to make this work.
Thank you, Mr. Boylan.
You're welcome.
Next is Becky Bolliard.
Good evening, board members. Voice now. I'm Becky Bolliard. Taught in Preston County, 12 years full-time, 14 years substituting. I really enjoy substituting and going throughout the county and experiencing, education done differently. And the small schools is where it's at. I was a student in Newburgh Elementary, and in 3rd grade, I found my report card the other day and said I was in danger of failing reading. And in 4th grade, I had an awesome teacher, Diane Price, and she turned me on to reading. I read 100 books that year, and I had her for 5th grade also. So she had a 4-5 split. And now Newburgh, like they said, is a ghost town because they closed Newburgh. I hate to see that happen in Fellows,ville and Rollsburg because they're both excellent schools. I taught at Fellows,ville for 5 years. I had 5th grade there, was scared to death because I transferred from 2nd at Templeton, Denver to 5th at Fellows,ville. And I was like, oh my Lord, I've only done 2nd grade for 5 years, what's going to happen in 5th? And they were the most amazing children. I told them to go, after I worked on the workbook page with one, I told him to go read his story. And, he went to his seat, opened the book, started reading the story. I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, these children, they have farm morals. They're raised on the farm. My son is a farmer himself. He's in Preston High, senior this year. And he went to the little schools, Fellows,ville and south of when it was middle school. But little schools are where it's at. As an educator, I've had, the first class I taught had 23 kids, and it was at Templeton, Denver, 3rd grade I was filling in. I had 5 Codys. And every time I said Cody, they were all in trouble. But I had an amazing mentor teacher, Janice Pierce, helped me through that 6 months, or not even 6 months, it was half the school year or whatever. And she's passed on now, but that was a little school, Templeton, Denver, and Fellows,ville, Rollsburg. Rollsburg was awesome. It's a nice, beautiful school. I taught there for a year, 2nd grade. And just coming from someone who's was out there in the trenches, I'm off on leave right now, but I really wanted to come back this school year, but my doctor has not approved it yet. So I'm only 50, so I've got 15 years till retirement. So I hope to return to the education system, and I hope it would be in the public school. I live right now beside of a Laurel Academy, like, they're more like homeschool. The teachers work with the children individually. They only have like 25 kids, and they're doing amazing things there. And January, they're taking over the upstairs, and they have high school kids then. And she said they may be interested in me, if I get released from the hospital, taking a job there. But I would love to come back to Preston County Schools, because I've had 26 years in with you guys, but the small schools is what we need to keep open. Bellows,ville, Rollsburg, keep it open. And I'm amazed at the communities wanting to help with the roof at Bellows,ville. I haven't been there for a few years, but I don't remember it being that bad. But it's just amazing, the community stepping forward like that to donate their time and labor and money to help correct neglect. But anyway, just
1 minute.
teachers talk too much anyway, so have a good evening and vote on the closure.
Thank you, Ms. Bolliard. Next on the list is Christine Feathers.
Good evening. All right, so I am a parent of a Fellows,ville student currently and a graduate of Fellows,ville who's a 7th grader at South. And I am currently the secretary of the PTO at Fellows,ville and involved with the LSIC. And so tonight we have heard all kinds of testimonies from students, from parents, from community members. They have been emotional and factual and objective. But I have one more thing to say. So as a PTO member, and LSIC, we were presented with the paperwork, and as the proceedings for the closure began, it came to our attention that no information had really been gathered regarding the reason that so many families left our county public schools. And so with our limited resources at Fellows,ville and our information, we developed our own survey, and we made it available to as many families as we could find. Though ultimately we had a pretty small sample size, we found some interesting information. And though most families liked their teachers and a small class size, they were most unhappy with the quality of their education. So therefore, that says that more attention needs to be paid to creating a competitive educational environment, then attention needs to be paid to how to shut down schools, especially schools that are performing better than any other school. So I believe that it would be irresponsible for the board to close the schools without obtaining a more complete picture of the problem at hand. I also believe that a more thorough examination of the county's budget is in order to determine if this is the only option. If the county fails to fully understand the problem, the same issue will be seen over and over. But this requires doing the hard work on the community level, on the county level, and with our lawmakers in Charleston. So now you are faced with making a difficult decision for our county, and I ask that you make the right one.
Thank you, Ms. Feathers. Next is Logan Stevens.
Please don't close down our school.
Thank you, Logan. Okay, did anyone sign up that I did not call? Did you sign up?
I was held up by heavy traffic between Rollsburg and Kingwood, but I noticed a few voices from Rollsburg, and I'd like the privilege of speaking.
Sorry, the rules are we have to sign up beforehand. Did anyone sign up that I did not call? Okay, so that completes the citizen input delegations portion. Okay. Next, we will move to new business. Is it okay if I go on? Okay, so this agenda item is the proposed school closure of Roseburg School and merger with Aurora School. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It is recommended that the Preston County Board of Education respectfully request approval for the closure of Roseburg School and the merger of those students into Aurora School for the 2025-26 academic year. All hearings have been conducted and procedures have been followed per policy 6200. This closure merger will provide students with an enhanced learning environment. Okay, before we can have discussion amongst the board, I need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
And second by Mr. Zigray. Okay, I'm going to read the content that was provided on the website. That's public content, and also all board members have confirmed with me in writing that they've read all materials that are provided. The following information has been compiled for the board's review related to the recommended school closure of Roseburg School and merger with Aurora School for the 2025-26 academic year. The files included closure application, Roseburg book, Roseburg SBA reports, Roseburg photo and layout, Aurora SBA reports, Aurora School photo and layout, physical appendix items, I always say it wrong, impact statement, and supporting documentation verification, public hearing notification published October 4th, public hearing notification published the 11th, public hearing notification published on October 18th, public hearing sign-in and delegation list from October 28th, 24, public hearing sign-in and delegation list from October 30th, 24, submitted written statements from the October 30th, 24 public hearings at Roseburg School, mailed article from Elizabeth Merriam, communications between Tim Weaver and Brad Martin, communications between Tim Weaver and Cross Kisner, comparative enrollment 2023 to 24 and 2024 to 25, and letter from Carol Castle. Okay, so at this time I will ask Mr. Martin for any opening statements that you have.
Just to begin, Mr. Tatham, just in response to some of the delegation groups we heard earlier, one specific question was posed by Mr. Coombs is in regards to the bus allocated times. We have applied through the process in which we have to submit the requested materials to the State Board of Education pending board approval tonight. We have requested a waiver for said bus routes, primarily related to younger students in terms of requiring 30 minutes or less on the bus. The State Board is aware that we are not necessarily fully in compliance at this time, and when they make, if it is ultimately presented to the State Board can make a determination as to whether or not they are willing to approve the request based upon that. The one thing that I would say is the anticipated saving of, I believe Mrs. Barner, were about 9 or 10 service-based positions. You know, that's one thing that you could look at in terms of the additional drivers being added to try to get closer to compliance on some of the specified routes. So, Mr. Coombs, I just wanted to try to provide you with an answer based on you posing a specific question. The other thing, and I don't want to necessarily go too deep in this, but in terms of the most recent West Virginia General Summit Assessment results, it is true that Fellows-Ville has outperformed South Preston in 3 out of the 4 areas. However, South Preston in 3rd grade mathematics did exceed Fellows-Ville's proficiency by 12% next year. Roseburg had the lowest ELA scores in 4 of the 6 tested grades. They were the bottom overall score in mathematics in 2 overall areas. So while they did have some areas where they performed very well, I just wanted to point out that in these instances, our smaller schools do not always necessarily outperform the larger schools unless they potentially slide into the So that was just in response to any of the questions we brought forth earlier. So at this point, I guess I would be speaking specifically to the situation in Goldsboro, not Fellows. And I do have a prepared statement. Over the past few weeks, the board and I have received public input at 2 hearings held on October 28th and October 30th regarding the proposed closure of Rollsburg School and merger with Aurora School. This is proposed at the conclusion of the 24-25 academic year. This process would result in the movement of all kindergarten through 8th grade students from Rollsburg to Aurora for the 2025-26 academic year, if approved by the board tonight and by the state board ultimately. The school closure and merger process is detailed in West Virginia Board of Education Policy 6204, and tonight's meeting has been convened for the board to publicly deliberate and decide on whether to proceed or reject the proposed action. I would certainly say this decision is not an easy one, as we have heard public comments, not only tonight, but in earlier previous meetings. We've also received a number of written responses that strongly advocate for keeping Rollsburg School open and speak to the many positive aspects that result in Rollsburg School. Despite these compelling arguments, I am here to briefly summarize the reasoning for the recommendation to close Rollsburg. First, Rollsburg has seen a substantial decrease in enrollment. In reviewing the long-term statistics, the school has seen a 69.9% decrease in student enrollment over a 10-year span. This has been assessed between the 2015-16 academic years and the 2024-25 academic years. Over this span, there's been a total loss of 79 students. During the same span, Preston County Schools has overall seen a 16% decrease in enrollment, totaling a total loss of 736 students. This substantial loss of enrollment at both the school and district level has had a hugely negative impact on district finances, as state level funding is primarily derived by student enrollment. In assessing this academic year compared to last year, Rollsburg has lost 12 students, dropping to 33 students from 45 last year. As a whole, the district has lost 177 students, from 3,935 students last year to 3,758 students this year. Now, I'll try to talk a little more detail about what the ultimate impact that this has. When assessing this substantial drop in students, this also results in the reduction of funding for both professional and service personnel positions. And while I applaud, when we were talking about Fellows-Bill earlier, the willingness to make improvements to the facility, the primary and the largest general savings is generated through personnel costs. Personnel is our #1 expenditure. Building-related costs certainly contribute, but personnel is really where a lot of our funding is designated. Based on this year's enrollment loss, the district will be required to eliminate at least 15 professional positions and 19 service positions. However, at this time, it should be noted that the district is currently in excess for service personnel by 8 positions. This is often required for positions that have to be added, for example, for items such as special needs, where we have to add an aide. I mean, there's a variety of factors why we have to add personnel. But I think many of you have visited our schools. I don't feel like we can say that we have an abundance or we're overly staffed as it relates to custodial or cooks or bus operators. I don't feel like we're over, but we're over the current state aid formula by 8 positions right now. With that being said, that pushes that needed cuts will be in 27 positions. Quite frankly, I don't know where we find 27 positions in the absence of the action that we proposed tonight. This pushes that need to 27 positions. Preston County, as we have said, no longer has an excess levy in place, and that does help to absorb some of those personnel costs. We no longer have federal ESSER funds. They're no longer available to use to hire personnel above and beyond the state aid formula. Therefore, the district must either make cuts to get within the state aid formula or pay for any positions above and beyond the county formula with county-based funds. Without the closures of these 2 proposed schools, I find it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to maintain positions within the state aid budget. This action of not closing the schools will also result in, if you want to know in terms of the impact on students around the county, the lack of this action will result in a higher percentage of staff at other schools throughout the county being placed on reduction in force status or placed on transfer. What I have consistently seen is through those actions, we lose personnel through that process. They seek out employment and other options because, at least in the interim, they don't have a guaranteed job. It is a problem, and it is a concern for sure. This situation would also create substantially higher student-teacher ratios in schools throughout the district. With that being said, what that means is, schools around the county are going to have larger classes as a result of the lack of, us making the decision to close these schools. Again, these schools have much smaller, and we've done a lot of things. When you look at Roseburg specifically, we have one teacher that's teaching 3 or 4 grades right now. So we've tried to make an efficient use of the staff at Roseburg, but that's an untenable situation for those students at Roseburg. With these ratios, it makes it much harder and sometimes impossible to maintain staffing level, to maintain block scheduling for reading and math instruction at many of our district schools. Board members, I think you can remember our meeting at Terra Alta where was indicated that the lack of staffing has made them adjust their schedules accordingly. So, that is something to take into consideration. It also should be noted that Preston County's inability to consistently maintain staffing levels within the West Virginia state aid formula and associated financial deficits this created resulted in the state takeover of Preston County schools in March of 2009. The state maintained control through 2014, and the direct reasoning for that was we were persistently operating over the budget that has been allocated for personnel. So, board members, I must say, we have to look at that. And in some of the speeches that were made earlier, that have been stated earlier in terms of reasoning and when there was discussion of the levy, and I don't discount anything that was brought forth by the presenter, but the one thing that's been told to me by many people in the public is, Mr. Martin, you have to learn to live within your means. That has been stated to me many, many times from people throughout the county. And unfortunately, as I look at the situation, it is difficult based on our current fiscal situation to be able to operate schools and operate buildings in this instance with 56 students and 33 students. It is very difficult to efficiently run buildings with that number of students. Next, when you assess the Roseburg school is considered to be in good and fair condition as assessed by Thrasher. Some of the documents were referenced earlier. That was part of the CEFP process in which we were required to submit a 10-year facilities plan back in 2020. But one thing I would also say, board members, is that CEFP plan, many people reference tonight, well, we're back again. I would say that being back again should not necessarily come to a surprise to anyone in the fact that the CEFP called for the potential closure of Fellisville and Roseburg after the 5th year, which is where we're sitting right now. So again, board members, you have a terribly difficult decision, but this was a decision that was discussed and talked about by, and members of these communities served on those committees. So I did want to make sure that has been brought forward. In terms of facility needed and potential facility improvements at Roseburg, the assessment by Thrasher Engineering estimated cost to be nearly $922,000. As Mr. Funk alluded to, there could be inflation to those numbers for sure. And I think there are cheaper and more efficient ways to make those repairs. But we're dependent upon the engineers to provide us with good faith estimates as to the types of costs we might be looking to maintain those buildings long term. In assessing the Aurora School is considered to be in good condition as assessed by Thrasher. Aurora School has the assessed program capacity of 333 students and 327 students as of 2024. Aurora certainly has sufficient capacity to absorb the students from Roseburg, which now stands at 34. Aurora's current enrollment is at 144. There's been much discussion in terms of the desire to keep students in small school environments. The Aurora School is a small school environment. It offers many of the same advantages that have been discussed at schools and the benefits that are seen at schools like Fellisville and like Roseburg. To move on in terms of the nuts and bolts in terms of cost, the closure of Roseburg School would estimate to save a total of $648,215.90, which was provided in the assessment document. These savings are primarily derived from personnel reductions that are estimated to total $597,777.50. This would result in the elimination of 5.5 professional positions, 4.5 service positions. It should also be noted between fiscal year 18 and fiscal year 24 that the per pupil expenditure, the average per pupil expenditure is at $11,540.72, while the average for Roseburg School over the same span of time was $17,918.02. That was over a span of a number of years. That is a difference of $6,377.30 per student. This gap is widening. You look at the fiscal year numbers showing the county per pupil expenditure. Our average for this year is for last academic year was $13,451.82, while you look at the average of Rollsburg at $22,918.28. This is an average difference of $9,466.46 per student. That is a substantial margin in terms of the cost. And guys, I know it's more than dollars and cents, but that is a substantial difference in regards to the cost that it costs the district to educate students in Rollsburg versus schools throughout the county. Due to the small enrollment currently in Rollsburg, students in grades K through 4 are provided educational services in a single classroom. I think the educators at the Rollsburg student do a tremendous job, and I have a great deal of respect for the individuals who work in the Rollsburg school. But it's very difficult in terms of the resources that they have, the numbers they have in terms of staffing. Students in grades 5 through 8 are educated in core subjects by 2 teachers. This is not a desirable configuration, and the movement of students to Aurora would place students in traditional non-split classrooms. When assessing Rollsburg's proficiency results compared to Aurora on average has performed favorably. In English language arts, Rollsburg had a 31.54% proficiency compared to Aurora's 36%, a difference of 4.46%. In math, Rollsburg had a 32.14 proficiency compared to Aurora's at 33.7, a difference of 1.56. During the previous proposed school closure process of Rollsburg School in 2018, a major expressed concern was the proposal called for Rollsburg students to be spread between multiple district schools, including Kingwood Elementary, Central Preston Middle School, Terrell East Preston School, and South Preston School. And I do understand that. At that point in time, the school felt like they were being ripped apart and spread throughout the county. And I certainly understand that mentality. The current proposal does call for Rollsburg students to be sent to a single location in Aurora. I understand that there have been expressed concerns with the routing that students would have to take to get to Aurora School that's been discussed in previous meetings.
Excuse me.
Now, one thing it should be mentioned is in terms of proximity, Aurora is not the closest option for Rollsburg School. There are schools that are closer. Terrell is 0.7 miles closer to the Rollsburg School. The Kingwood area schools, Kingwood Elementary and Central Preston, are 2 miles closer. However, in review of transcripts from the previous closure process, there were parents that asked why Aurora was not a consideration for placement of Rollsburg students. Concerns have been expressed by people in the Rollsburg community about the travel up and down Cheat Mountain. This route has been assessed by members of the Department of Education. In terms of the Department of Transportation, no significant concerns have been expressed. However, I am cognizant of the concerns that have been brought forth in previous meetings. Travel would be primarily on Route 50, which is a major highway and priority snow route by the West Virginia Department of Highways due to the truck traffic on the road. It's felt that Aurora School is a school that closely compares to Rollsburg in many aspects. The schools both have relatively small enrollments, yet there are major community hubs. The schools currently share multiple teachers, and that was a consideration as well. There are Aurora staff that actively work at the Rollsburg School, so there are relationships there. In addition, there have been cooperative athletic endeavors in which Rollsburg area athletes have been able to compete with Aurora School. For parents concerned with travel to Aurora, and this is something that's been brought up, current board policy does allow Rollsburg students to apply for an intra-county transfer to Kingwood area schools, and this is inclusive of transportation services. Now, it is understood that this request could be denied if there is not sufficient space at the Kingwood area schools, but I do feel that that is a point that worth being made is that parents have, with concerns of the transportation, that we would have a bus going to Kingwood, and if there is sufficient space in Kingwood area schools for Rollsburg students, that is a possibility for those students to apply for enrollment in those buildings. Overall, this proposed closure is being recommended primarily due to the significant decline of enrollment in Rollsburg and the district at large, and due to the substantial cost saving associated with the closure. I'm aware of the virtues and positives associated with small schools that have been discussed. The district's current circumstances with the large loss of county enrollment, the loss of the levy, make continued operation of Rollsburg not necessarily economically feasible or responsible. Unfortunately, Preston County is not alone. When you look at this, there are currently 20-plus schools that are seeking potential closures with the state school board. Some of those are taking place in the December meeting. There will also be hearings both in January and February due to a waiver that's been filed, statewide waiver for some schools to seek that process later. Board members, I know this is a terribly difficult decision, but I implore you that you should approve and consider the recommended closure for the reasons I've detailed.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, so now, board members. You want to pass your mic down? Questions, comments, discussion?
I guess my only concern is the transportation of the mountain. I have a very big fear of car accidents for particular reasons. And to think about sending kids up that mountain is what I'm having a hang up with. I'm just really having a hard time with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller.
Mr. Plum, in regards to some of the considerations, I know there's been concerns brought forth with some of the safety options with the bus. I mean, could there be any discussion in terms of some of the safeguards that are available on some of our county buses that we feel would be helpful in this circumstance?
There's been mention of a four-wheel drive bus. I've checked into that. There's a upgrade kit, costs $30,000, but it would not pass state inspection. Automatic chains are not used in West Virginia. They're used in bordering states, but they're not allowed in West Virginia. I believe the allocation of one of the eight new school buses will be in that area. And the route has been assessed very recently by the State Department of Transportation. They came up at our request and drove the mountain with me.
Thank you, Mr. Plum.
Mr. Plum, if the route were being considered unsafe, future weather or any other circumstance, would we have the ability to route a bus around it since there are multiple other routes that you can get from Rollsburg to Aurora?
That would be something that we can discuss. We haven't as yet discussed that. I know that it would change my routing that I check the weather routes in. I'm going to have to start there because I could not go the other way and come down, because once you come our way down the mountain, I would not have a signal to call Mr. Martin at 415. So I would have to go reverse to my house and go up there first and come across the Pike 2 Alley.
But would we be permitted to do that if it was necessary for some reason? If there was an 18-wheeler that was wrecked on that hill, as an example.
Like November 6th.
Excuse me, Mr. Weaver, sorry. Same point.
Yes, if there's if the road's blocked, we're going to we definitely can take a detour. As far as a permanent solution, that has not been discussed.
Right. Sorry, just for clarification. I'm not asking for a permanent solution, just that we would have the ability, even if we got the kids there 30 or 40 minutes later and we have a loss of education time, we can legally take a different route if necessary, if something were to occur.
Yes, we do that quite often.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Grohl, are you familiar with the concerns that have been presented about being out of compliance with the time and the exemption that Mr. Martin has requested? Have you been consulted on that? Are you comfortable that we have done everything in the legal, proper manner to address those concerns?
Yes, I have the code right here, and what it says is it sets out times for transportation for elementary students, and then for those that are seeking a waiver, they're closing a school or consolidating a school. It says that the county board may not create, nor may the state board permit the creation of new bus routes that would exceed by more than 30 minutes the already time slot, 30 minutes, for elementary students. It's my understanding that the transportation routes have not been set yet for those exactly. And as Mr. Martin indicated, they would be looking at putting in new routes that would not exceed that 60-minute standard. And if there is an ability for a waiver, if it's up to that point.
So at this point, we're compliant with the state statute.
Yes, because they've not created routes that exceed 60 minutes.
Thank you.
For the benefit of the audience, this is Ms. Royal, our Rolls-Royce legal attorney.
In preparation, excuse me, I made a little bit of so many things going through my mind. There's so many different things to consider. I made a statement. First of all, Mr. Martin, I just want to thank you for all the time you've taken and all the effort you put into this. And I know it's a lot. We have a lot of time. I can just imagine what you have. So it's a shame that we were put in this position. Unfortunately, with all the circumstances that led to this situation, it began way before this board. However, it is still our decision to make. I disagree with consolidation. Our little rural communities lose so much when they lose their schools, and it's been said. I myself was part of that, living in Masontown, just like Independence, Newburgh, and even Masontown. This is one of the very last things Rollsburg has left. Lastly, the teachers, they're doing great considering their circumstances. After the hearing we had in Rollsburg, the two teachers, I'm not going to say their names, took their time, gave me a tour of the school, showed me their classroom, and explained to me how their daily routine went. These teachers could do amazing things with the proper classroom setting. I applaud you both. I give them all the respect I can with what they do every day. Also, I contacted a member of Career Management and asked if there was ever going to be a chance that they may reopen Cheat River Limestone in hopes that this would bring people back to the community. Their answer was extremely unlikely. So with all that being said, putting these children and all the future children's safety at risk is something I cannot really agree to do. I have personally trucked up and down the mountain, and I know exactly how dangerous it is to travel with big vehicles. In consideration of what our Department of Highways have said and our Transportation Director has said, I disagree because I've experienced it. As you just said there a little bit ago, at 4 o'clock from top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain, I've experienced it. You've had rain at the bottom, you've been spun out at the top. It's dangerous.
Excuse me, Dr. Weaver. Excuse me.
And that can change in 10 minutes' time. And it's on us to make this decision. Safety aside, although that should be the absolute #1 reason, we'll discuss some finances. And I understand everything that you propose, Mr. Martin. I really do. We are being asked to close a school, but at one time you talked about possibly keeping it for future use. Is this correct? We'd like to, right? So with that being said,
Mr. Hogarth, at this time, it is the intention for the Rollsburg School to be retained for at least 1 year to assess potential usage. We are pursuing grants for the potential option of an alternative program that would be a considered location.
So with that being said, on the 2018 assessment of the school, it was stated that, and I quote, the entire roof is at the end of life, and it's an $860,000 repair. So are we going to fix that roof with grants or with county funding if in a year we have that other school option?
If we were to use the facility long-term and it's deemed that the roof would need replacement, I mean, Mr. Murray would work with vendors. We could potentially seek SBA funding, although I think that would be difficult to obtain. I would think it would be more opt that this would be something we'd have to pay through county funds.
So in the year, if it could potentially be sitting, are we going to keep it heated and have those expenses? So if these children are bused to Aurora, the added cost of maintenance should be assessed with that. And I, for one, can tell you, the fleets of trucks I have, traveling up and down that mountain would result in 2 to 3 times more maintenance cost. Mr. Combs stated that he contacted the bus manufacturer And that they, being expert on buses, stated the exact same thing, 2 to 3 times more maintenance on the buses. In my opinion, we do not have the accurate account of the savings projection. We don't have all the information with what I just said. So in closing,
You can't say how you're going to vote. You can't say how you're voting.
closing statement. I have to disagree with your proposal. I cannot consciously vote to put these children and all the future children's safety at stake and send them out to a war. I've said this a couple of times, that in 30 years, if there's a bus accident and one child is hurt or killed, it's because of this board's decision tonight. And I can't live with myself making that decision.
Thank you, Mr. Hobetter.
Mr. Martin, are you able to, when you had to do your analysis of the cost savings, do you recall whether or not in that an increased cost of maintenance for the buses that, as Mr. Hobetter has brought up, if that was one of the variables that's into account, do you know?
I would say our maintenance costs would be very similar to tear out the buses that go daily to tear out East Preston. We run them out with a 9% grade up and down every day from Terralton. So I think our cost would be similar, but in this instance, we would only have one bus versus multiple buses that go up daily to Terralton East Preston. So we would be looking at a singular bus going to Aurora.
Thank you.
Okay. Just so the public knows, this is the first time that the board has had the opportunity to talk together, and that's how the open meeting laws work. We've had the opportunity to hear public content, but this is the first time we can hear each other. So with that being said, I would like to ask Ms. Croyle a question. Is this the only way that this can work, is that we say yes or no, or can there be a motion to amend where a different receiving school location, it can be changed to that? So for example, Mr. Hovetter sounds to me like he has a major concern with going up and down the mountain, which is required to go to Aurora. Can the board amend the superintendent's recommendation and change the school? Or does that set us all the way back at the beginning?
It sets you back because you have to do the study for that school. It sets you back at the beginning because you have to do the impact for both the receiving school, which would be different than what you've done so far.
Okay. So our option is just yes or no on the current proposal, the current motion as it stands.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. More questions?
Mr. Tatum, I would respectfully ask, Mrs. Varner, I know, had done some work in preparing some documentation, and anything that was not inclusive of my statement, I would just respectfully ask if she could be allotted any time to speak.
Please introduce yourself, Austin.
I'm Angie Varner, I'm the Assistant Superintendent. I'm Angie Varner, I'm the Assistant Superintendent. A few things that I would like to point out. When Mr. Martin was talking about our personnel cuts, because I do all of the personnel for the county, with the state aid formula, with our amount of students that we lost this year, we are going to take a drastic hit again this year. Last year's personnel season for me was a nightmare. Not only did we lose a lot of kids through the state aid formula, but I also had to make cuts due to when we lost all of our ESSER money, we lost all of our levy money. Last year I did cuts that affected over 94 staff members in our county. That was a lot of people for me to have to go out and talk to and either say, hey, I'm cutting your job, or I'm putting you on transfer. that took a lot to go out and have to do. This year, we're going to impact 27 service personnel, like Mr. Martin said, and 15 professional personnel. And this is solely due to the amount of students that we lost just for kids either going to charter schools, micro schools, or just moving out of the county. The majority of them were just kids that either went to homeschool, micro schools, charter schools. With that in mind, we're going to need to find ways to make this work within the county. So for every professional position that we're going to have to pick up out of county funds, it's going to equal out to anywhere between 95 to 100 grand per professional person that we're going to have to pick up out of county funds. That includes salary and all of the benefit packages. For every service personnel that we're going to have to pick up is going to be between 50 and 60,000 for every service personnel person we have to pick up. This year alone, we picked up 8 service personnel positions this year out of county funds. Next year, with the amount of cuts that we're looking at, I'm estimating that the county's going to have to pick up about 15 of them because having to cut 27. So that's going to equal about $900,000 that we're going to have to pick up out of county funds alone to keep people in jobs that we're going to need. And we're going to be looking at around $500,000 to cover professional positions that I'm going to need to keep. And that's going to have to come out of county funds that usually I would have been able to cover out of ESSER money, which we no longer have, or out of levy money, which I no longer have. So that's going to be an additional expense that we're going to have to find out of county funds somehow to help cover. If we would have closed these 2 schools with the cuts that we were making out of these closures, that would help me by reducing these positions, and I would only be looking at having to actually find 3.5 professional cuts and 18 service cuts. One of the things that I would like to bring to your guys' attention, you were asking how would this affect everywhere else in the county. When we were at, like Mr. Martin said, the meetings with Terada, Brewston, the LSIC meetings, all of them were saying, hey, this really messed our master schedules up, or hey, this really messed our class sizes up. I can't do my reading blocks. I can't do this. I can't offer these enrichments. I can't do all of our special classes. We had to cut these classes out of our master schedules because I can't have the teachers. If I have to cut all of these positions, these schools aren't going to be able to offer these classes. It's going to be even harder for all of our other schools to be able to provide to the rest of the 3,649 students in our county what they need based off this. So I want you to remember part of that. The other thing is when it comes time for the personnel section on the state scorecard, I'm going to have a very hard time meeting the demands on that with the obligations of how to fill all of our positions and how to maintain the state aid part on that, and we're going to be going over because that's going to ding us on that. So just keep that also. A couple other things on here. When it comes to the charter schools and things, and we have to pay the charter schools when our kids go there. I know on the last board agenda, we had the amounts on there for where we paid out of the title funds. When we add in the state formula funds, that right now is at $12,656.82. As our kids move fluently throughout the rest of the years and they transfer from counties to counties and in and out, we could probably see about close to $180,000 is what we'll end up paying as a total throughout the year. As we get our kids moving in and out, Katrina will be able to help speak on that a little bit more as we get billed as the kids come in and out of our county and come in and out of the other counties. So that'll be an additional cost that is just starting this year, that is new for this year. So that'll be something additional that we're going to have to work with. And the other last really big thing I wanted to reach out and let you guys be aware of is We always paid summer school out of ESSER funds, and with ESSER funds now being gone, we're going to have to pick up the summer school cost out of county funds. And last year, just the personnel cost of summer school was $455,187.75. That was just to run summer school. That was our teachers, our site coordinators, our cooks, bus drivers, custodians, nurses, and our instructors. That was just the personnel cost. That did not include any of our supplies, or Preston High School's credit recovery or Preston High School staff for credit recovery. So all of that cost is also going to have to come out of county money for this year. So I wanted to give you guys that information also. So everything else is in your packet that I gave you, but those were a couple of the really big things that I wanted to point out to you. And I just also wanted to say is, you guys, I also hear a lot of people saying, remember, you were, to look at the county as a whole. We do have larger schools with larger class sizes that do have higher test scores than our smaller schools. And how is it fair always to keep all the smaller sizes when you're there also to take care of the entire county with all of our students? So we just have to watch for everybody. So thank you.
Mrs. Barnes, just hold on to the mic for a second. So can you fully explain the ramifications for me that if we vote no for Rollsburg and we keep Rollsburg, I'm assuming we cannot make any additional personnel cuts for professional or service at Rollsburg. We're down to the bare minimum and have been, unfortunately, for a while. But we have declining enrollment throughout the rest of the county, so that means there's going to be personnel cuts at other schools. Where would those cuts be absorbed most likely? Like what types of classes, what types of grades, etc.?
So,
I mean, just keep it general so that we're not pinpointing it.
So all of our elementaries are set with class sizes. So if you're in pre-K...
Set by who?
By the state code. So elementary, pre-K can have 20, and that is all. If you're in kindergarten, you can have 20. We can pay up to 3 additional to go to 23. If you're in first, second, and third, your max is 25. 4, 5, and 6 is 25, which we can pay up to overage of 3 more to go to 28. So I am very set within K6, pre-K6, of how many kids can be in every class. So I cannot add any additional kids except for where, the state code is. So where we're going to get hit is going to be in our middle schools and our high schools. So we are going to have large classes going from 7th grade through 12th grade. And that's where we're going to take the cuts. And it's going to affect larger class sizes. Class electives are going to be cut because I'm going to have to say you're all going to be teaching just 4 classes. I'm going to have to cut teachers. The electives will go away because I'm going to only need them to teach the 4 classes only. And they're going to have larger class sizes.
So when you say electives, what would that be? And then my second part of that question is can the community fundraise to fund elected teachers?
If they could come up with $100,000 per teacher.
But is that allowed? So it is possible. I'm getting the idea from our treasurer. Okay, I'm sorry.
So some of the electives, so like up here at the high school, they have yearbook, they have AP courses, they have some of the CTE courses, they have foreign languages, they have weightlifting. Those classes like that are not required will go. We have to have basic math, science, social studies, Englishes. We have to have gym, we have to have health. We have to have 1 fine arts credit. Those are the courses that we are required to have. After that, there's a lot of extras that we offer up here at the high school that we do not have to have.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more questions for Mrs. Varner? Ross? Thank you.
decisions in government are not yes or no. They are this or that. When government thinks that the decisions that they're making are yes or no, you end up with questions like, should we lower taxes? Well, obviously everybody wants the answer to that to be yes. But the question was, should we lower taxes, or should we provide better schools for our entire state, or more opportunities for our entire state? You understand the bigger picture of the question. We're in a similar situation here. The answer isn't yes or no to whether or not we're going to close Rollsburg. The answer is, where are we going to spend our money for the next school year? And we're going to be responsible for those dollars, whether they're going to go into Rollsburg or whether they're going to go across the county to the larger setting. Here in a little bit is going to be whether or not those dollars go to Fellows,ville or if they go across the budget for the entire larger set. The decisions we're making here are not easy. For anybody who thinks that the easy answer was this proposal, I don't know how we can get there. Nobody wants to close a school. But the five of us that are up here, as I speak to each of you, as much as the people out here, we ran for this position and we're accountable for our decision. We're accountable for how that dollar is going to be spent next year. We're accountable to make sure that we spend that dollar the best that we can for the entire county as a whole, for our students entirely as a whole. I'm not going to give you the answer to that, but I'm saying that's what we're responsible to do. It's not yes or no to Rollsburg or yes or no to Fellows,ville. It's how is that dollar going to be spent? And how are we going to do the job that we're doing the best that we can?
Thank you, Mr. Kisner. Mr. Zigray, is there anything you want to say?
We got to make a lot of cuts next year. And as Ms. Varner said, our high school's going to get hit. And we constantly have larger and larger classes. I can remember one year I had 35 to 40 kids in a class because there was no one else to teach that class. And we're going to lose electives, and our smaller elementaries are great. I mean, I agree 100%. Less problems, discipline problems, easier to deal with, talk to kids. But our other elementaries have 25 kids in a class. And that's not fair to them either. And, I don't know what the answer is, but when the first line here says we have to make 15 professional cuts and 27 service cuts, and a couple years ago they wanted to know why the high school was so filthy. Well, it's because we cut 5 janitors up here, and over the years, we cut a janitor over at the board office, and cut a janitor down in the elementary and the middle school, and you don't get as much payment done.
Is there any more discussion amongst the board? Okay, just explain housekeeping here. Before I call the vote, I'm gonna let you know how we do that. Once I call the vote, Mr. Martin will click a few buttons and it'll all pop up on our screen, and we can vote yes, no, or abstain. For board members, we have to have at least 3 votes, okay, so that we have a quorum voting with that. That'd be the first thing. Second, the votes tallies will roll up here. In addition to that, we're going to do a roll call vote where the board, okay, tell me if I'm wrong. We're going to do a roll call vote verbally that a board member matches their electronic vote. That roll call will start with myself. It'll go to Mr. Kisner as vice president. It'll go to Mr. Zigray. It'll go to Mr. Hovatter, Ms. Miller, okay, for the verbal. And the verbal roll call will match your electronic vote, okay? So one last call. Is there any more discussion? Everything good, Mrs. Grohl? Okay, I call the vote.
Voting is open.
Okay, I said yes. Please use your microphone.
I voted yes.
I vote yes.
I voted no.
No.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you, board members. Okay, next on the agenda, we have proposed school closure of Fellowsville Elementary School and merger with South Preston School. Okay, this is an action, discussion, and information item. The Preston County Board of Education respectfully requests approval for the closure of Fellowsville Elementary School and the merger of those students into South Preston School for the 2025-26 academic year. All hearings have been conducted and procedures have been followed per policy 6200. This closure merger will provide students with an enhanced learning environment. Once again, before we go to a motion and second so we can have discussion, I want to confirm for the record that I've gotten written confirmation from all board members that they have read all the documents that are available. And those are the closure application, a Fellowsville book, Fellowsville SBA report, Fellowsville photo and layout, South Preston SBA reports, South Preston photo and layout, physical appendix items, impact statements and supporting documentation, verification, public hearing notification published on October 4th, public hearing notification published on October 11th, public hearing notification published on October 18th, public hearing sign-in and delegation list at South Preston, public hearing sign-in and delegation list at Fellowsville, submitted written statements from the October 29th, 24 hearing at Fellowsville School, petition submitted by Roberta Gribble on November 12th, 24, Fellowsville LSIC proposal submitted by Roberta Gribble on November 12th, 24, mailed article from Elizabeth Merriam, communication between Marianne Plum, Brad Martin, and Lucas Tatham, comparative enrollment 2023-24 to 24-25. On 11/15/24, there was communication from Wendy Ridenauer, letter from Carol Castle on November 17th, 24, and an email from Gribble. Okay, so we can have discussion amongst the board. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zigray. Okay, Mr. Martin, I will turn it over to you for opening statements.
Again, Mr. Tatham, I would just indicate we received a lot of information at the two public hearings that were scheduled on October 29th, both at South Preston and Fellowsville. We've certainly heard at those meetings and tonight many people speak to the positive experiences they've had at Fellowsville and the wonderful education that children receive at Fellowsville Elementary School. I would say that tonight's proposal would call for the movement of all pre-K through fourth grade students from Fellowsville to South Preston for the 25-26 academic year. The school closure and merger process is detailed within West Virginia Board Policy 6204, and tonight's meeting has been convened for the board to publicly deliberate and decide on whether to proceed or reject the proposed action. This decision is not an easy one, as we've heard all types of comments again of the positive aspects of the education received at Fellowsville Elementary. Just to provide statistics quickly, in looking at this and reviewing the long-term statistics, Fellowsville has seen a 50.8% decrease in student enrollment over a 10-year span, assessed from the 15-16 year to the current 24-25 academic year. This is a total loss of 63 students over that span. It should be noted that during the 21-22 school year, the board did approve the shift of fifth grade students from Fellowsville to South Preston. I wanted to make sure to note that. In addition, there are currently, and this was a question that came up at the last public hearing, in assessing with our attendance director, there are 18 students who filed for intra-county transfer from Fellowsville to South Preston in grades pre-K through 4, which are the grades that aren't, at this time, Fellowsville area students that aren't already attending South Preston School. So again, I wanted to provide that information to the board. The school has lost, they did pick up, the year that the fifth graders removed, Fellows actually picked up students, but then we saw a decline over the last 2 years, bringing a loss of 30 students. Again, Preston County Schools has seen significant decreases over that same span, 16% decrease, 736 students over that 10-year span. This is a substantial loss of student enrollment at both school and district level. Again, Preston County Schools lost 177 students from last year to this year. Fellows-Ville lost 16 students from that same span, moving from 75 students to 59. I believe since this report was written, they're a few lower than that, but they're in that general range. When assessing the substantial drop in students, it also shows the results in the reduction of funding for both professional and service personnel positions. As Mrs. Varner alluded to, our current loss of students would require 15 professional cuts, 19 service cuts, but in actuality 27 service cuts based on the fact we are currently 8 over our allocation. We don't have an excess levy, we cannot use ESSER funds, and again, I find it will be very difficult for the school district to get within state aid formula without consideration of the proposed action. Again, I would say that the lack of action on this matter will result in higher percentages of staff at local schools that will be impacted through the reduction in force and transfer process, which does lead to loss of employees through that process. It will result in larger classrooms and larger student-teacher ratios at other district schools. It will make it difficult for them to maintain instructional blocks and potential additional classes beyond the required coursework could be potentially cut as a result. It is ultimately said again, it is the fact that Preston County Schools was taken over in 2009 primarily due to the fact of persistently operating over the state aid formula. So again, board members, I would urge you for consideration to the proposed measure. In fact, I don't want to see a repeat of what occurred in 2009. The estimated cost of improvements will reference the Fellows-Ville total nearly $2 million. South Preston was a school that was constructed in 2014. So South Preston is a much newer building. It has the capacity of 629 students. South Preston currently has 308 students. So again, from a capacity standpoint, the South Preston building is able to accommodate the potential students heading to Fellows-Ville, who will be potentially heading from Fellows-Ville. The estimated total savings are $683,747.29. These savings are primarily derived from personnel reductions that would equal $623,932.02. This would result in 6 professional cuts, 4.5 service cuts that would occur with the closure of Fellows-Ville. And again, looking at the per pupil expenditure, the average over the fiscal 18 to fiscal 24 for the entire district was $11,540. Over the same span, the cost to educate students in Fellows-Ville would be $15,940.90. That is a difference of $4,400.18 per student. This gap is also widening, much like we saw with Roseburg. The county average this past year was $13,451.82, while at Fellows-Ville it is $18,741.44, an average of difference of $5,289.62. Fellows-Ville Elementary is approximately 6 miles away from South Preston, so from a transportation consideration, it is a much closer trip compared to the school closure process that we considered with Roseburg and Aurora. I would also say that, again, middle school students are already going to Fellows-Ville in grades 5 through 8 because South Preston is the receiver school of Fellows-Ville students once they hit that grade span. As noted earlier, Fellows-Ville has had a proven academic record over a number of years, not disputing that. Fellows-Ville has been a high-performing school for a number of years, as Roseburg has been a high-performing school at times. As I indicated, however, Fellows-Ville at the grades 3rd and 4th grade has outperformed South Preston in 3 out of the 4 areas when we're talking about math and reading. South Preston did exceed Fellows-Ville as it relates to math instruction at the 3rd grade level. Fellows-Ville, as we said, is a current feeder school 5.5 miles away, receives students in grades 5 through 8. 18 students did leave as a result of inter-county transfer from Fellows-Ville to South Preston, and our policy does allow for those students to receive transportation services. Overall, the proposed closure, again, is being recommended for primarily due to the significant decline of enrollment at Fellows-Dome, the district at large. Obviously, this is again, board, a very difficult decision, but again, I would implore you to consider and approve the proposed measure to close Fellows-Dome and send students to South Preston for next academic year.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Discussion, questions, comments from board members? Use the mic.
I said I wrote a speech again. So, first of all, again, Mr. Martin, I want to thank you for all the time and effort you put into this. We do appreciate you. Secondly, I just want to say, wow, what a community sport that Fellows-Ville School has. And it's awesome to see so many people come together with such passion for what they believe in. Just today, just to see all the letters of intent for the community members and the businesses that pay for the needed repairs. I don't feel any of these issues related to this potential closure are the result of the admin, staff, or its community. This is a direct result of previous board's decisions. Well, this board needs to fix those mistakes and possibly allow this school to be a model school for the county. They can do it, they just need our support for once. If we continue to follow consolidation recommendations, where do we go once the schools are at capacity? Because that's what we're aiming for. We're trying to fill the schools. What's our next step? The Fellows-Ville Little Learners Program has the second highest enrollment in the county. I believe without the constant concern of closure, more people would enroll their children there. And up to 2023, when the 5th grade was removed, the enrollment was increasing. Possibly if the 5th grade was brought back, some of those students have siblings that would increase the enrollment. We as a board are tasked with many responsibilities, one being education, another being finances. The education these children are receiving is great. They are in the top 3 countywide in proficiency in both ELA and mathematics. They do not have any behavior issues, and they don't have problems with absenteeism. The statistics you just told us, Mr. Martin, show, using round numbers, that it's a $5,000 per student extra expenditure on current enrollment. That math comes out to less than 1/2 of 1% of our school's budget, based on what Ms. Kerstetter told us in a meeting last week. These children's education is worth that extra 1/2 of 1%. Now for the financial aspect of it. Well, we just saved 5 professional personnel for 4.5 service personnel with the vote we just had. So it's in my opinion, and that of many others, that this school has been intentionally neglected in terms of maintenance. After the approval of the 2018 levy, many believe, and statistics show, very little was spent on this school. Why would it though? Because even in the 2018 assessment of this school, it states in writing, and I quote, expected to close within the next 10 years due to declining population. If it is voted to close, I truly believe this county will never get another levy passed. Some areas in this county have never experienced the stress and the anxiety of a school closure. Once you've taken school from a community, they never forget it. Mr. Jennings spoke at the hearing at Fellows-Ville Elementary School, and I quote him saying, never after a consolidation has a budget went down. There is money to do the maintenance of this facility and keep it a viable part of Preston County's educational system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hovetter.
Mr. Martin, Ms. Kerstetter, barring a massive change by our legislation in the state aid format, is there any situation either one of you will ever see that Fellows-Ville is not on the brink of this situation?
We start with Ms. Kerstetter. We've not heard from her yet. Please introduce yourself, also in your title.
I'm Katrina Kerstetter. I'm the treasurer for the county. Because of the way the state aid formula works, it looks at all the students as one big group. It doesn't look at individual schools. And as long as that's the case, it makes it very hard when we have small schools. That's just a simple fact. So short of changes that may or may not happen, that's just the way we are right now. And
Mr. Kisner, just to add on, I look at, for example, Randolph County is a very similar county to Preston in terms of enrollment, geographically, a lot of similarities. They are looking at closure of two very small schools for a similar reason, a reason that Mrs. Kerstetter alluded to. Currently, Pickens and Harmon are both being considered for closure. They are, both being closed because of very small numbers. And again, as Mrs. Kerstetter alluded to, with this collective pot of money that has to be devoted to the education of all the students in the county rather than a line item allocation per school, I do anticipate that this will be a continued issue. If the board chooses not to approve the measure to close Fellorsville, I think the board does need to take up consideration to make an amendment to the CEFP, however, because, again, this is a planned measure within this time span over the next 5 years that this building is potentially up for closure. So to answer your question in a long way is yes, I don't anticipate that this is going to change over the next few years unless there's substantial changes at the legislative level.
I'm like Mr. Everybody. I had paragraphs and pages, and I feel my way because I don't know how to do any justice in this decision. I would say most likely this is going to be the single hardest decision I've ever participated in my life. And the only way I can look each of you in the eye is to tell you that I have spent so much time in deliberation and consideration and trying to figure out, because there's an answer that my heart wants to go with, and there's an answer that the facts in front of me. I understand you all feel like you have been drugged for decades through this. I've only been in this for 2 years, and that's no excuse. I signed up for this. So I'm responsible for the decision I have to make tonight. And I also have to be able to look into the eyes of Brewston, West, and Kingwood with 28 and 30 and whatever it is in their classrooms, and I have to be accountable for that as I'm making this decision. And I've never been a part of something that's going to affect as much as this is. I'm outside of deliberations here a little bit, but thank you for caring. If every parent in this county cared and tried to participate and put in an effort as much as you all have in the past month, we'd be an entirely different county and a different state.
About 8 years ago, when I first got on the board, I was shocked that we had to vote on sending a kid from Brewston to Morgantown. We had to vote on that. And every year, we sent 4 or 5 of our kids that direction. I couldn't believe that the state would allow to take a student from one county and send it to another county. But just like now, we have all these charter schools, and we're losing all these kids to these charter schools, and we gotta pay that money. And we really don't have a choice once again. So we're losing numbers, and we've got to make some rough decisions. I wish all our schools were small, but we don't have the money for that. And I know it's down to a money thing again, with something you said. But I see more people when I sub down in Morgantown from Preston County that used to work here at every school down in Morgantown. Because once we cut them from here, they have to go get a job somewhere else, and usually the closest place is Morgantown. And once again, we're going to be cutting a number of professionals and service personnel, and I don't know where our administrators are going to do. You
you're gonna end up with larger and larger classes to the point that this high school is gonna burst because of the amount of kids in one class.
Mrs. Miller, do you have any questions? Okay. I think, as everyone else has said, I mean, it's a difficult decision. I mean, I think we would like all schools to be small and successful like Fellowsville. So I guess I'll just ask Mrs. Barner and Mr. Martin. Mr. Jennings said that, you know, we could just tell you all to figure it out. So if we vote no for this, tell me again. I mean, because it seems like to me, and I'm speaking to you, Mrs. Barner, because you handle this area, Fellowsville's a well-performing school. So if we make a decision to keep that small school, how does this impact the rest of the students?
The rest of the students or the rest of the...
Just, I mean, is it, basically, I'm assuming it's the same thing, but if we decide to keep this school and vote no, how does that, tell me again how that impacts other students so I can weigh it in my head.
Well, again, if you keep this school open, it's going to have the same impact as I said for Fellowsville, keeping it open. We're going to have class sizes within all of our middle schools and high schools. We're going to lose we're going to lose electives across the county. Your other schools of Terrata, Aurora, West, South, Brewston, all of your other 8 schools, Central, they're all going to have an impact by keeping this one open. The one other thing that I did not bring up the last time I was up here, in the packet I gave you on the very last page that had a graph on there about the overall funds, that one right there, Mrs. Miller. It looks like right now we're great, but when you look at it and you compare where we had the ESSER and the levy.
Can you say what ESSER is exactly?
ESSER is the COVID relief funds that we were given by the federal government. When we had both of those combined, we were in great shape. And right now we're still okay because we still have that extra money from the ESSER money. It just ran out. Like November, we had to have everything pushed out. So we still had a little bit of it for the beginning of this year to get everything closed out. So for this year, we could use it for personnel because we can't be paying personnel out of it for this year. But there were a few expenses like our programming, Seesaw, Schoology, iReady, our big programs that we have to have in place were purchased through that this year. But for next year, that's another item that we're going to have to pick up. And that's another one of those major costs. And we have to be able to have that for all of our students within the county. And our federal programs, title funds, things like that, that we hear you guys mention, and being able to want to use. Not all of our schools are title schools. You have to be able to meet the guidelines in order to be title schools. And not all of our schools are title schools, so they don't all receive title funds. So we can't use those title funds to help offset the costs for all of those programs. So Brewston, which is one of our bigger schools, is not a title school. Aurora doesn't receive title funds. When we can't use that title money to help support all of our other schools, those schools fall back onto us as a county also. So there's a lot of funding and things that we have to pick up on our end as a county to support those kids that our other title schools have the extra funds to help support. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussion or question from board members? Okay, not seeing any. So before I call the vote, same housekeeping. We will, when the vote is called, it'll be electronic voting where every member votes yes, no, or absent, or abstain, I'm sorry. At least 3 board members are required to vote for a quorum. Once the votes are entered and Mr. Martin tells me the votes are entered, we will do a roll call vote in the same way, with myself first, then Mr. Kisner, Mr. Ziegre, Mr. Hovatter, Mrs. Miller. Okay, one last call. Any other questions? Okay, I call the vote.
Voting is open.
Okay, I voted yes.
Yes.
I voted yes.
I voted no.
We can't hear you, Mrs.
I voted no.
Right, thank you. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is adjournment. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Kisner. Second by Mr. Ziegre. Is there any discussion? Okay, call the vote.
Night, boys.
Motion passes 5-0.